Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 2, Sankhya Yoga, Verse 15. Yam hina vyathayantyete purusham purusharshabha samadukh sukham dhiram so amritvaya kalpate. He is the bull among men, the foremost among men, Purusharshabha, who remains the same in pain and pleasure, Samadukha Sukham. And this one who remains the same and calm, Dhiram, in pain and pleasure, does not get disturbed. Vyathayantyete. He surely attains to immortality. So amritvaya kalpate. Two or three very important and fundamental principles are embodied in this verse. And if you listen with care, you will find those principles emanating from these words. First is the principle of the experiencer. And the second is the matter of death. It is not about pain and pleasure. It is about the meaning one gives to pain and pleasure. Experience in itself has no meaning sans the experiencer. The experience is for the experiencer. The experiencer constructs and interprets the experience in his own image. So, pain and pleasure do not automatically translate into suffering and happiness. Pain becomes suffering through the intermediation of the experiencer. And pleasure becomes happiness as construed by the experiencer. When the experiencer is an idea of itself, then all it has is a certain hollowness. No idea is ever complete or perfect. The experiencer is the ego. The ego is nothing but an idea of itself, a thought, a principle, an image, a dream, an assumption, speculation, a conjecture, a belief, a superstition. That's what the ego is. But the ego is the experiencer, and the ego is fundamentally an incomplete entity of its own making. Therefore, everything that it comes across has to have a meaning. The ego cannot leave things as they are. From the ego's vantage point, everything is for the ego, for the ego. And you must expand the statement to read it in its fullness. From the ego's perspective, everything is for the fulfillment of the ego. So that which presumably fulfills the ego or gives it at least a momentary assurance against its fears is deemed to be happiness. Happiness is something that at least temporarily assures the ego against its frailty and dissolution. Please understand. The ego is the experiencer, and the ego is an entity of its own making, imperfect, frail, brittle, insecure, having no rootedness in the ground of reality, just an apparition, forever incomplete, always in the making, always in the process of becoming, trying and striving. And when such is your condition, then everything that you come across must hold meaning to you, because your meaning is not contained inside yourself. Inside yourself, there is only hollowness. Inside yourself, there is no completion. Therefore, you have to search for, or beg for, or hunt for completion from the experienced world. So the world holds a lot of meaning to the ego. Conversely, the more is the meaning that the world holds to you, the more are you just an incomplete ego. What extent are you ego rather than the pure self? can be determined by examining the extent to which the world holds meaning for you. The more the world signifies something important to you, the more it is guaranteed that you are living away from your truth and in your imaginations and speculations. So, to the ego, the world is meaningful. The world is a supplier of fullness and also a robber of all that you have. The world can give, the world can snatch away. The world is a donor, the world is a dacoit. World provides, the world also loots. And all this is to the ego. So if experiences have great meaning for you, it simply means you are operating from the ego center. When experiences have great meaning for you, then pleasure will translate into happiness. Pain will translate into sorrow. Can realization guarantee you against pain and pleasure? No. Pain and pleasure are things in Prakriti. They happen. And a lot of that can happen just by random chance. Yeah. Taking a stroll, a wanton coconut can fall on your shoulder or back or head and injure you. There will be pain. It does not matter how realized you are. Coconuts do not especially care for realization. Coconuts can fall. So there will be pain. A full grown one with all its mass and water just landed on your skull. There will be pain. But what does that pain mean to you? That is something that you decide. And when the ego is the decision maker, then pain almost definitely means suffering. So suffering then is an indicator of the presence of the ego. Suffering requires a sufferer. Ego is the sufferer. Pain does not require an internal agency to exist. Pain can exist sans anybody who lends meaning to pain. Please understand the difference between pain and suffering. Suffering always has meaning. Pain is just a state. Pain has no meaning. And the meaning that suffering carries is the meaning given to pain by the ego. Pain is probably inevitable. It comes with the human condition. If you are born, pain, or at least certain episodes of pain, are ineluctable. So is pleasure. To be born human is to be guaranteed pain and pleasure randomly. Much of that you don't even plan. At least your pains you do not plan, right? Pleasures you do a lot of time. Others' pains you plan, not your own. So those things just happen. They are like birth. They are like the weather. By chance, fickle, random. You get it? But when those things have meaning, then there is a problem for the one who lends them their meanings. The one who is at the center of this verse is the one who has not been named even once in the verse. The ego. We have talked of pain and pleasure, and we have said some dukh, sukham. We have not said who is it that would remain some. That is stable, calm, poised, equanimous in dukh and sukh. The name of that entity is the ego. The entire Bhagavad Gita is about the ego. Entire Vedanta is about the ego. Upanishads talk of nothing else but the ego. So part one is, the more you operate from the ego center, the more the world will mean a lot of things to you. And the more susceptible you will be to happiness and sorrow. And that's a condition of great slavery. Because we said that pleasure and pain are random incidents. As long as they are random and remain random, no loss, no problem. But when we start giving meanings to those things, then there is a lot of problem. When we start associating the external events of chance with our internal well-being, then there is a lot of problem. So look at the identity that Sri Krishna is establishing in this verse. It's a work of great genius. He is equating equanimity with immortality. He's saying that if you can remain equanimous in sukh and dukh, then you are amar. Then you have attained amritatva. So amritvaya kalpate. Equanimity is immortality. What exactly is he saying, and how can these two be identical? We have looked into the first of these, equanimity. We have seen how being perturbed by the unpredictable, random, fickle conditions of life indicates that one was either expecting a lot from life or was apprehensive about life. Only when you expect can your expectations be denied or belied. Only when you are apprehensive can your fears come true. Right? So something happened and that managed to bother you. That simply means that you were expecting a lot from what was happening. And to expect is to operate from your position of desire, want, incompleteness. Else, why would one expect anything? So, one side of the equation dealing with equanimity is about the ego. If things matter a lot to you, then you are a very egoistic person. And that's a very wise and complete definition of the ego. Who is an egoist? The one to whom the world matters a lot. The one whose sorrow and happiness are tied to worldly conditions is an egoist. You're happy. Why? Because something happened out there. Right? You look pale and sullen. Why? Because something happened out there. He was expecting the neighbor to deliver him a rich slice of cake tonight. Instead, the same neighbor came and served him a volley of expletives. He is down now. The desire has not been honored. The world held so much meaning and promise. The promise has not been kept. You see this? The egoist is the one whose fulfillment does not lie within himself or herself. Everything about him is from the world, from others. He's happy. Why? Somebody did something good to him, so he's happy. He's sad. Why? Something in the world happened to make him sad. I get it. He's afraid of others. He is dependent on others. He was born of others. He hates. He loves. There is nothing within him that does not contain otherness. That's the ego. And the world has tremendous control over such a person. Just about anything or anybody can come and disturb him. He has no inner mastery. He has no inner sovereignty. A random person on the road can easily manage to offend him, unseat him, not just disturb him, but actually uproot him. That's the egoistic person. Everything about him is from the world. And it's not that the world has been conspiring to disturb him. This chap has just so many expectations, and fears and expectations are two sides of the same coin. This fellow has a lot of expectations and equally a lot of fears. His expectations are from the world, his fears are from the world. That's the ego for you, right? Now we return to the Krishna equation here. Equanimity equals immortality. That's the equation tonight. So we saw that equanimity involves the word that has not been spoken in the verse. Equanimity involves the ego. An equanimous ego, an unshakable ego. And the ego is unshakable only when it is seated in the truth or Atma, the self. So equanimity is about having an ego that just cannot be shaken, disturbed, affected, afflicted, controlled, conditioned, influenced. That's equanimity. Samta. Samta. My ego has found its love, its proper place. It now sits in the lap of the true self, the pure self, Atma. And it loves that place so much that you just cannot get it to get up. Does not matter how much you lure it. Does not matter how much you scare it. It refuses to leave its lovely abode. At most, it can offer you a glance. That's the maximum you'll be able to extract from the Atmast ego. You come and appeal too much to it. Again and again, you are saying, you please get disturbed. You get a little happy, you get a little sad, you get a little agitated, or whatever. You get into some mood. You please show some sign of being influenced by me. You'll be lucky if you can get as much as a glance of recognition from the ego. It refuses to even recognize you. All it has for you is apathy. Not antipathy, mind you. Not antipathy. Apathy, indifference. Who are you? When you know who you are, it becomes very easy to say, who are you? And when you do not know who you are, then you can never say, well, who are you? Then everybody who comes to you is somebody. Who's who? And when you know who you are, then irrespective of the size of the monster that seeks to threaten you, you say, who are you? And that's if the monster is lucky. That's if the monster manages to extract any kind of response from you. Typically, even that kind of response would not come. You are just too busy relaxing, playing, enjoying your bliss. Why would you bother to please the other with acknowledgement? Some random fellow is needlessly knocking at your existence. To respond to him would be to lessen your peace. Who wants to let an outsider infringe in his love? You know. So at most what that fellow will get is, who are you? A glance of indifference. That's all. That's all. Are you getting it? And you know, it is this indifference that the world terribly needs. We often talk of empathy towards the world. No. Even empathy is not needed. This would surprise a lot of us. What you really need is indifference. Prakriti does not need your healing touch because she is healthy in herself. She does not really require you to be empathetic. She knows how to take care of herself. Returning to our full grown, luscious coconut, did he need your intervention to attain his size? Did you pump it up or inject it with the coconut fluid from outside? Prakriti has a beautiful intelligence of her own. She knows her things. She knows how to manage her affairs in a very, very intelligent way. You don't need to interfere. Your interference is rather the problem. So what you need is indifference, not interference. Hence I am talking of apathy. We often talk of the nice man as the active savior of the world, right? That's the figure we sketch of him. He is actively rushing to save the world. Some kind of a spiritual Spider-Man. Wherever there is a problem, we have some kind of guru or Swami appearing from somewhere. Right? Well, all that is beautiful and glorious, obviously. But I'm not sure whether all that is really needed. Just keeping a safe distance from Prakriti, from the world, is sufficient. You do not need to help her out. You just let her be. But the problem is that the ego, just as it thinks of itself as the victim, also loves to play the savior. Sometimes it is the victim, at other times it is the savior. I am the one who did a lot of mischief, and now I will be the one who will correct all the mischief. That's not really needed. Rectification of mischief is in itself a bigger mischief. You just stay away. And you can stay away only when you have that little cave of love of your own. Then you can remain peacefully ensconced there, sleeping in your inner delight, not bothering to expect too much from the world or intrude too much into Prakriti. Are you getting it? Today, when it comes to climate change, we are talking of unimaginable kinds of technologies. We are talking of atmospheric sinks. Somebody is talking of underwater sinks to trap carbon. Not sure how that would work though. All kinds of things we are doing. Read somewhere somebody was talking of exporting carbon to outer space. And obviously, green vehicles are the thing of the day. The government has thought to acknowledge them by glorifying them with a special kind of number plate. Go green. Just that it is now being conclusively proven that the carbon footprints of electric vehicles is actually bigger than that of petrol or diesel vehicles. So much for your ability to correct your mistakes. You say, I put so much of carbon in the atmosphere. Now I will be the one who will pull the carbon back. In trying to pull the carbon back, you will only generate even more carbon. The world will take care of itself. You just step back. Spirituality is about stepping back. Go back into yourself. You have your sacred shrine in your own heart. That's where you must love to rest. Are you getting it? Then the world does not mean too much to you. Then pain and pleasure do not become sorrow and happiness. Pain remains just pain. Sometimes excruciating pain. Pleasure remains just pleasure. Somebody told a good joke, you laugh at it. The weather is absolutely fine, you laugh at it. The food was tremendous today. Oh, you loved it. But that's all. Delicious food is just delicious. It does not mean anything, mind you. That's the thing. Was the food delicious? Of course. Did you enjoy it? Of course. No, but you're a spiritual man. So, am I not supposed to have delectable food? I got good food. I took pleasure. But does that mean anything? No, of course not. What does that imply? That implies that if tomorrow I do not get the same kind of delicacies, I would still be equally all right. Today I got them. It was great. Tomorrow I won't get them. It would still be great. That's what. It meant nothing. I took it, but it meant nothing. Equally, I lost it. I acknowledge the loss. Obviously, there was loss. But it means nothing. Nothing has any meaning beyond itself. Things are facts, meanings are imaginations. So things exist, meanings don't. For me, there are a lot of things, but nothing in my purview holds any meaning when it comes to my inner existence. That inner existence, you could say, is either meaningless or has an innate meaning. An innate meaning not dependent on the world or experiences or Prakriti. Are you getting it? Hmm? Now we come to immortality. So, what is it to be immortal? To live for long? To never physically die? Huh? To just keep meandering this way, that way for 10,000 years? Hmm? Is that what is immortality? To have a birthday cake with 10,000 candles? How boring. Would take 10 more years to just prepare the cake and put the candles there, and then you find that the count is not right. So the entire day you spent just counting them right. By the time you got the count right, the day was gone. Pathetic. What kind of birthday is this? And every successive birthday now manages to get you bankrupt. Such a big cake and so many candles. Is that what immortality is? Immortality is the absence of the one to whom there is death. Who dies? Who dies? To whom is death? Death is not to the body. Death is a thought to the ego. Before you understand mortality or immortality, you have to understand who is the mortal one. The body is not mortal. And it is just a reflection of the spiritual illiteracy of popular culture that when somebody dies, we talk of his mortal remains. Please understand, it is the ego that dies. The body does not die. Though in popular culture we say the body dies and the soul is immortal. Have you not heard that? जिस्म को मौत आती है लेकिन रूह को मौत आती नहीं. Nonsense. It is the ego that has the concept of death. It is the ego that shudders at the thought of death. Ever found your hand nervous thinking of death? Was your hand ever nervous, or your nose, or your eyes, or whatever? It is the ego that has this concept of death. You get it? So, as long as there is the ego, there is death. That's what is meant by death. Death is another name for the ego. So, there are two centers within you, the death center and the Amrit center. Amrit is the word, mind you, not eternity, not immortality. Amrit, just a denial of death. So within you there is the death center and the non-death center. Amrit. Amrit. As long as there is the death center, there is death. What is immortality then? Not to be operating from the death center. Immortality is not about expanding your physical existence in time, furthering your physical life by 40,000 years. That is not immortality. That is just juvenile imagination, fit for comic strips, not for serious spiritual understanding. To be immortal is to be at the right center within this moment. Immortality is a thing of this moment. It is not a stretch in time. At this moment, if I am from the right center, then I am immortal. You are immortal. To prove yourself immortal, you do not need to show your age certificate. Would be pretty hilarious, no? 10,000 years of age and searching for his high school mark sheet, just to prove that he indeed is now the recipient of a gold button from the heavens. No, silver rather, 10,000. If you are to be immortal, it has to happen now. And you can be immortal this moment and very much dead the next moment. Being alive and being dead are not things of the body. No physician can ever really tell whether you are alive or dead. They can only tell you about the conditions of the body. And the physician might very well say that, oh, this fellow is in fine fettle. All the indicators are within range. And you might still be absolutely dead. Dead and cold and rotting. So when are you dead? When you operate from the ego. What is it to be non-dead? Amrit. Not dead, not dead. Amrit, not dead. What is it to not to be dead? To be operating from your real, complete, assured center. That's when you are immortal. That's when there is no death for you. Mind you, the ego never experiences death. It always only imagines death. Death is therefore just an imagination. Show me any person who has experienced death. Death is always just an imagination. There have been billions of people who have died, and there are equally billions still alive physically. Bring me one who can prove that there is something called death. Show me one who can prove that there is something. Yet everybody talks of death. And that's what death is. Talk, blabber, prattle, yak, 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 death, death, death. Where is death? Where is death? Except in your thoughts, show me where is death. Except in your thoughts, where is death? Right? And the ego thinks a lot. And it thinks a lot of the future. and the future means death. The future also means desire. So desire means what does the future mean for you? Desire. But the future is obviously also desire is death. And both desire and death are to the ego. Therefore, just as equanimity meant egolessness, similarly, immortality means egolessness. That's all. There's going to be no Ashwatthama roaming around. Such a jobless fellow. All he has been told is to wander. Occupation, loitering. Makes no sense. No? Death is inside, just as life is inside. Death is not something that will strike you from outside. Outside, there are just random events. Death is to the one within. And the one within does not really need external events to die. If the one within is in ignorance, then it is continuously living in death. To live in ignorance is to live in death. You do not require death as a bullet that strikes you in the brain. That's not really needed. Death comes to us far more easily and far more continuously. The more you keep living from the wrong place, the more you keep maintaining a flawed concept of yourself, the more you are continuously dead. Continuously dead. Are you getting it? How not to be dead? Read the equation then from the opposite side. Till now we have been saying equanimity equals immortality. Now let it say immortality equals equanimity. If it is death that scares you, Krishna says, become immortal, son, by treating everything in the world alike. That's immortality. Something great happened for you. Smile and shrug it off. Something disastrous happened to you. And then shrug it off. You are immortal now. Immortality is a carefree shrug. This is immortality, right? Beyond a point, I don't bother. This is immortality. Come pain, come pleasure. Both of you imposters look alike to me. That's immortality. Immortality is to see the childishness of the ego. Little child always afraid of obliteration. That's the ego. Little child always thinking, oh, what will happen of me? That's the ego. That's death. We have depicted the death god as an overgrown adult, big, fat, muscular, powerful, riding a big buffalo. No, the god of death must be a small child, needlessly afraid that the mother will desert him. That's the right representation of the god of death, the baby god. Ever seen baby monkeys? Really small ones. They keep sticking to the mother, and if for a few moments they are left alone, have you seen their eyes? How wide eyed they become? What's going on? The mother is by their side or somewhere nearby. That baby monkey should be the moniker for death. Needlessly afraid. Afraid of its own imaginations. That's death. And convinced that there is cause for fear. In its own world, the baby monkey is totally convinced there is definite reason to be afraid. Well, there is no reason. Immortality is when you forget to be afraid. Immortality is when you get something so dear that you forget death. Immortality, therefore, is not an attainment, but a forgetfulness. Why didn't you die? Oh, I had to. I forgot to die. But why didn't he die? Because he forgot to. That's immortality. But you're supposed to die. I'm sorry, I forgot to. That's immortality. I was so busy, I forgot to die. That's immortality. The immortality is for the unoccupied, for the jobless ones. For the existentially unemployed. Seeking some inner job and finding nothing. These are the ones who not just die, who keep dying. Immortality is for those in full-time jobs. And full-time means full-time. Full-time. There is a song. I said, there is so little time to live. There is so little time to live. And then the next line said, where is the time to? They said, no, the song went this way. There is so little time to love. Where is the time to hate? Something like this. Immortality would be, there is so little time to live. Where is the time to die? I'm full time engaged in the task of living. I have no space for the imagination called death. How will I die? How will I die? The body might fall someday. Oh, so many things fall. At the beginning of the session, that coconut fell. If the damn coconut can fall, even this coconut can fall. How is this different from a coconut? You look at him. Only the straw is missing. An overripe one. So coconuts fall, the body too will fall. Well, what's the difference? Do you say the coconut died? It fell. The body too will fall. Fine. But I will not die. I will not die. There is no way I can die. Cut the crap. I'm not going to die. My teacher put it so beautifully. मरना था सो मर गया, अब को मरने जाए. The thing that needed to go has gone. Now, how is death possible? The thing that needed to die has already died. Now there can be no more death. I am immortal. If you are somebody, you will die. You don't want to die? Become clean inside. And if somebody will be there inside, that somebody can have only one name: beggar. Evict the beggar. Get him to evacuate your insides. Be clean within. Now there is nobody. Now there is nobody, and hence there is nobody to die. When there is nobody to die, there can be no death. That's immortality. Is it making sense? If the session is successful, a point must come where there must be left nobody to whom anything makes sense. There must only be a stillness, a silent void. And then if I ask, is it making any sense? You must say, but you killed the one to whom it could make sense. There used to be someone to whom it made no sense, who would say, oh, nonsense. Then you nurtured that petulant fellow within. He used to say nonsense whenever he would listen to you. And then you nurtured him, trained him, taught him. And he started saying, well, a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. But now he has attained his fullness and departed. Now there remains nobody within to even acknowledge whether the whole thing makes any sense. That's the height of ripeness. When you can't even appreciate the session, when there remains nobody within to even say that the session was beautiful or ugly, gone. My job is to bring you to the departure terminal. But there it is your decision whether to board the flight. Are you getting it?
The last thing that you said, is it the same what Kabir Sahib says? Paya kahe so bawra,
खोया कहे सो कूर.
paya khoya kuch nahi, jo kate bharpoor. But at the last line he said, jo kate bharpoor. This takes off.
ज्यों का त्यों भरपूर, complete as it is, basically means free of all that we put in it or on it additionally. So the fundamental and natural state itself is of completion. And then we add to that completeness. That addition is called the ego. And when that thing is removed, then the event can be described in two ways. One is that the additional thing has been removed. Now the focus is on the removal. The additional thing has been removed. And when you focus on what has been removed, then you say, oh, the highest state is that of a void. Now, why are you calling it a void? Because you focused on the removal, and that is quite intelligent to focus on the removal, because that's what we need to do. The entire process of negation, cleansing. So then you say, oh, the heart has to have a pure emptiness within. Because you're focusing on that which was to be removed. And now that it has been removed, you talk of that state as that of a clean, pure void. The other way is to look at what remains. Once the clutter, the dust, the unnecessary stuff has been removed, what is it that remains? The pre-existing fullness. So then you put it this way, ज्यों का त्यों भरपूर. That the nonsense has been removed and the pre-existing natural fullness, swabhav, is all that remains. So jiska tas bharpur. These are two ways, the Buddhist way and the Vedantic way of describing the same thing. Here, Kabir Sahib is choosing the Vedantic way. At times he chooses the Buddhist way also. Do you see how the ego, therefore, is an impossibility? The ego is an addition to fullness. And that's why it is mithya. Inwardly, you are already full. And the ego is an addition to fullness. Therefore, it is an impossibility. It cannot exist. This cup is already. Now the mug is full. And you say, I added a quarter liter more to it. What you have just said is an impossibility. And that's called the ego. How can you add to that which is already complete? And that's called the Atma. You're already complete. How do you want to add to yourself? But you manage adding something to yourself. That unnecessary addition is called the ego. And that's the reason now you know why the ego is always so scared. The ego is like a ticketless passenger in a reserved coach. All the seats are already pull. But this one has somehow managed to sneak in, and therefore it is always insecure. At any point, the TT might come to inspect, and then it will be thrown out. It knows it has no place, it has needlessly intruded. And the coach was doing absolutely fine even without this additional passenger, right? But it has managed to somehow crawl its way into the coach. And now it is making all kinds of excuses and doing all kinds of silly things, trying to make relationships. That's what the ego is always doing, no? Trying to please someone or trying to get into a brawl with someone. Somehow it is trying to make itself relevant. The thing is, you are totally irrelevant. Get out. You have no place here. Get out. The place is already full and happy and occupied. Contented. But the ego, imagine first class reserved coach, and there is this destitute trying to play over smart, entering this cabin then that cabin, trying to evade the TT in all ways possible, hanging by the ceiling fan in the toilet. Somehow it has to remain invisible, undetected, but always afraid. Always afraid. That's the ego. It knows it is needless, additional. And additional not in terms of surplus, additional in the way of the tumor. Just as the tumor is an additional nonsense in the body. It is a part of the body, is it not? But it is a needless part of the body. The body will do very well without the tumor. The ego is a tumor within. Remove it in whatever way possible.